Now, what we're doing here is, next question is very similar. And what you're going to do first is you're going to look at your denominators, okay? And you're going to notice what you could do, and I told you about this on your homework, is if you really are confused about what to do first, is you take your denominators and just multiply them together. And it causes a little bit more of a problem in questions similar to this, okay? So what we want to do first, and what's going to make your life a lot easier, is going to be to factor first, okay? That's going to be your best bet, is to factor first. You should know the factoring here. You should know how to factor that. That's not anything new. And when you start to get doing this more, you're going to notice that you're going to do the factoring of this a lot faster than you're used to. Okay? Just because it's not the main concept of the question, it's a smaller part, but you're going to get used to factoring things like this. Okay? I'm not asking you to do the AC method in these. I'm asking you to do simple, what's the factors of 20 that give me 9. It's pretty straightforward what it's asking of you. The other side's the same thing. X minus 5, X minus 5. Now, what you're going to notice is you can do one of two things with these two parts. And what I'm going to ask you to do, though, is I'm going to ask you to keep it X minus 5 times X minus 5. Okay? So now we factor. Now we can find out our least common denominator. So we'll go over here. Our least common denominator. Look at what's on bottom. Remember, you have to account for everything on bottom. What's the first thing you see? Well, we see what? X minus 5. Okay, you see one of those, right? Now think about it. How many X minus 5s are on the left side?
1.
1. What about the right side?
2.
So think about this. If there's 2 on the right side, remember we've talked about kids, right? If you give one to another, you got to give both. So imagine if you were out and your brother or sister got 2 video games, you only got 1. What would you want? Another one. So you have to have 2 X minus 5s on both sides. So that means your least common denominator has to include 2 X minus 5s for that reason. Like if I asked you what's the least common multiple of X and X squared?
X.
Up. Squared. Go squared. It's got to be the higher of the 2 exponents. When you thought greatest common factor, then it was opposite and the lowest. But when you're working up with multiples, it's the highest of the exponents. Okay? Because you have to account for everything on both sides. So if you have 6 on one side and only 4 on the other, how many do you need to have equal? You need the 6 on both sides. So it's that basic idea. Okay? And if you think about X minus 5 in terms of squares, you can write X minus 5 squared. So if you have X minus 5 times X minus 5, which is why I brought up the question of X squared and X. Okay? And what else are we missing? What else do we have in here? X minus 4. So that's the last part that we're going to have. Okay? And now you set it up exactly the same way. X minus 4, X minus 5, X minus 5. Now Vogel, again, I know it looks like you want to just combine them. But what I want you to do is I don't want you to worry about combining them because it's not really going to help you. Okay? If anything, combining them will make it harder for you. Right? It'll make it more difficult for the next step right here. Is because when you look here and you're trying to figure out what you need to multiply the 2 fractions by in order to give you the common denominator, you won't know if you put all this together. Because this will be 4 terms starting with a cube term. Okay? Which is a mess. Right? You don't even want to go down that road. But it's really simple when you look. Alright, we got an X minus 5, we got an X minus 4. X minus 4, X minus 5. What is this missing that this has? Nice and loud, Ace. X minus what?
5.
5. So that's what you multiply the top by. See what I mean? If you have it laid out in front of you, it's easier to see what it's missing and what you still need to add to it in order to give you that common denominator. And then you go down and you would distribute, but it's 1, so we just write X minus 5. Now on the other side, X minus 4, but same idea. Notice you have an X minus 5 and you have an X minus 5. X minus 5 is here. And what's extra? This X minus 4. So that's the extra part there. and then you bring it down to the next step, and just like Michelle said, 5x minus 20. Now, what Vogel was saying, and you guys were asking, see, this is where you got to trust what you knew at the beginning of the part. When you knew when you added 10 over 12 plus 9 over 12, you knew the answer would be 19 over 12. You knew that the denominator stayed. That was the first thing you told me with adding and subtracting fractions. So you have to trust that it still works the same. Trust that it still works the same. You'll still get the same answer. And like I said, I wanted to practice a lot of subtraction. That's why you see most of these have subtraction in them. Okay? So, what's up, Alex?
Is the answer negative 4x plus 15?
Yeah, we're going to get there right now. All right? So what you do is, remember, the bottoms just carry along. Don't worry about doing operations in the denominator. They just keep going through. You deal with the tops. The top is like chapter 5. So, exactly what Alex said. He was right. Negative 4x plus 15. Let's show everybody how we got there. X minus 5. Negative 4x. So you remember what I said? The part of doing it in your head, this step here, instead of writing that out and creating yourself another step of writing, you can be able to do that in your head. You just got to remember to subtract all the parts. Then negative 5 minus negative 20. Negative 5 plus 20. So that's positive 15. Do we see how that works out for us?
Yeah.
This is all you're doing. If your denominator is something that doesn't look right, try to factor it. Try to factor it. Factoring will make it easier. And don't do any of the operations on bottom. Don't combine the x minus 5s, the x minus 4s. Don't put those together because it makes it harder for you to tell the parts that you're multiplying by on top and bottom. That's where you'll run into problems with putting everything together. If you really wanted to go crazy and do it at the end, you could. All right, you could. But do you really want to take the time on the quiz to multiply x minus 5, x minus 5, and x minus 4? Probably not. So don't even worry about it. I'm not asking you to do it, and you'll never be asked to do it here. Okay? Questions? Good. We'll move on. Let's stop.